guys, welcome to Pyg-Tales. Thank you guys for watching. We're going to take this series and we're going to show you some behind the scenes stuff and go a little bit deeper into what being a Velcro Pygmy is all about, the history of the band, some of the technical aspects of it. Each and every member is going to be featured, and so you're going to learn a whole lot. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. That way you will be updated anytime that we put a new episode up. And I think you're really going to enjoy this, and you're going to probably learn some things about the band that you never knew, where we came from, where we're headed to, what we've done, and that sort of thing. So thank you guys for watching. Subscribe now, tell all your friends, and we will see you on Pyg-Tales.
Alright, so I'm Chase, and I've been in the band since 2013. But I'll go back and kind of talk about how I got my start. When I was learning how to play guitar and all that stuff, I feel like a lot of people are just into what everybody else is into, like whatever's popular at the moment. And at that time, like Puddle of Mud, Fall Out Boy, Breaking Benjamin, like all that stuff was on the radio. And all the guys that I played in bands with wanted to play that stuff. And you know, I'd play it with them. It was cool. I liked it. But when I found the old stuff, like the classic rock, like that's what really like inspired me. So I went back, got into all these old bands like Van Halen, Ozzy, Motley Crue, and I just dove into it. I learned all this stuff on guitar. And it was weird because I was this little kid that was into music from way before my time. And so it kind of pushed me in a direction to play with people that like embrace that side of it more, because it was just a totally different ball game back then. So when I hooked up with these guys, they were already doing it. They had the big lights, the big show, and I seemed to just fit right at home.
God dang it, dude.
A funny little story, like I had never met them when I got the gig. Cam calls me up and he's like, dude, I need you here this weekend. And I'm like, dude, I don't know any of the songs yet. Like, I mean, I know them, but I don't know them how y'all know them. Like, we need to get together and practice. And he's like, yeah, I'll see you on Friday. So literally, like, the day I met them, I stepped on stage and played a full show, like 3-4 hours of music. It was just, it clicked, just like that. I mean, felt right at home, and I didn't make any mistakes. I nailed everything, so I was, like, relieved. And then I just kind of settled in, and you know, I do my thing now.
This could be the best it ever gets. I'm not right, but you're not perfect.
I'm Max War, also known as Maximus, bass player for the Pygmies. Came on with the Pygmies officially in April of 2016. For those of you that aren't familiar, the Velcro Pygmies lost their bass player in March of 2016. He and his brother were killed in a boating accident. I've known the guys, I've known Cameron for going on 10 years at this point. And they asked me to come and fill in for a gig in March, a few weeks after the accident. I happened to be off the 2 days they wanted me for a show during the week. Despite the tragic circumstances, it was nice to actually get to see them, despite their grief, be able to focus on the show and actually kind of enjoy themselves. And there was a lot of really good chemistry there. However, at the time, I wasn't ready, me and my wife weren't ready to shut down our band, which at the time was Gypsy Riot. The same week that I filled in, my wife, we took her to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. She was diagnosed with vocal nodules. The doctor recommended that she either have surgery with a minimum of 3 months off time or 9 to 12 months of complete vocal rest, as far as no pushing, no screaming, no singing, flat out done. They didn't officially offer me the job initially because I told them that I wasn't available. What ended up happening was they put out an open audition. They had thousands of people hit up for this job, and none of them seemed to fit the bill. They called me, I talked to them, they made an offer. We talked back and forth a little bit more. My wife and I did some soul searching. Then my wife and I, one of our last shows together, we played a benefit concert for Jacob and Jeremiah Sanders, the previous bass player for the Pygmies. I got to meet Jacob and Jeremiah's parents, Mike and Lydia Sanders, and they were so wonderful. Just the sweetest people on the planet. And it was right then that we knew that this was where me and my wife needed to be. So what we ended up doing was we figured out how to come into the Pygmies and let Gypsy Riot go to where we could hopefully help the Pig fam, because that's what this is. This is one, like, we don't have fans, we have family. How we could come into this scenario in a way that not only honored Jacob, but kept his memory with us. And that's what we've tried to do the entire time. Speaking of keeping the Sandman with us, this has been on my bass since, actually, before I was even in the band. I put this on there. It says Sandman, and for those of you that don't know the whole story, again, Jacob Sandman Sanders. So we keep him with us, I keep him with us, and he's a constant reminder that I need to make sure that I keep my game strong. Because Jacob was a great guy, funny guy, and an entertainer unparalleled. The man had a wonderful way and wonderful presence about who he was and how he approached being a performer and entertainer. And unfortunately, I didn't get to know him as well as I would like to, but that's the story of how I came into being with the Pygmies as well as my wife.
We're close enough. Do you feel like giving up? And I'm so tired of this, but you're beautiful to me.
Well, I came into the band in '95. I had been on the road for about 7 years and had crossed paths with the Pygmies one time at a college and decided that's the band I needed to be in. This was probably '92, and I had a great band at the time, but I wanted to be in a band with a front man. Told them if they ever needed a drummer, give me a call, and late '94 I got a call, and they said their drummer was getting married and leaving the band, so I packed up my stuff in Augusta, Georgia, and drove to Louisville, Kentucky, played one song with them, and we went down to Club La Viva in Panama City for 2 weeks. Played down there, and I've been here ever since. This March will be 25 years with the Pygmies, which is 25 years of having to stand behind or sit behind Cam and watch him shake his ass. I started playing with the stick held between my fingers because when I came up, you had your Tommy Lees and Enough's Enough and all these other bands, so everybody had to be able to spin around, flip, do all the other things. And it was always easier for me to do it that way, and it just ended up working out that way. And granted, my fingers are all jacked up from it, but you know, it's worked out. And people ask sometimes on the drum set, because I keep the cymbals way up. I was blessed with long arms and long legs. Keep the cymbals way out of the way. I never did like a bunch of crap in front of me. I want to be able to see what's going on. And early on, you know, before married with kids, wanted to see chicks in the front row. But did that, and I get a lot of questions on my snare drum that I keep really jacked back. A lot of guys play it flat. And again, when you play for 150 shows a year for 30 years, you know, you worry about things like carpal tunnel and all this other stuff. And by no means am I a doctor, and I'm sure this is totally stupid, but the way I see it, when I'm coming down with a stick and I'm hitting the snare drum, if I'm hitting it flat, all of the energy from that, hitting the metal, hitting the rim, hitting the drum, is going straight up your arm. When I'm coming down on mine, I'm shooting the energy down, and no problems. So whether that's, you know, anything good or not, it works for me.
We want to have certain traditions, certain things that people look forward to every time they come to the show. And whenever you've been around as long as we have, those things have kind of naturally happened. Some people call them gimmicks, and I guess that's what they are, but they are gimmicks that people come to the shows to see, one of which is the use of the blow pop. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to say, what do you want me to do? And you're going to say, I want you to stick it in my mouth. It actually started in Chattanooga, and we would play a place that was called Yesterday's. And Yesterday's was it was an old school club where the band would play there from Tuesday to Saturday. So we would go there and be there all week long. And we would go there, and obviously Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays would be slow. The weekends would be strong. And I kind of attribute those experiences to what really helped develop the band into what we are. Because whenever you perform on what someone considered to be a slow night, that's when you really learn your craft. That's when you really learn how to be an entertainer, because if you can entertain 20 people, you can entertain 20,000 people. Well, there was a group of folks that would come out, and they always came on Tuesdays because they had Wednesday off. And they worked at, it was called McKee, but it's actually Little Debbie. And every night we would get there and they would have a different food item on stage. And they would expect me to incorporate that into the show. So sometimes it would be Twinkies or King Dongs or pickles or whatever. And one night there was a bag of blow pops on stage. And so I didn't really know what to do with them. And I like blow pops myself. So I started to pass them out. And I noticed that there was a certain provocative nature about passing out blow pops. And so from there, it kind of evolved into what it is now. What do you want me to do?
Stick it in her mouth.
Yeah! We felt like that blow pop would be a great sponsor. And so we reached out to the Charms people. They kept telling us, well, we don't think that you are really servicing our target market, which our response to them was, obviously you don't know what your target market is. You need to come to a show and see exactly what we're doing with blow pops. And still to this day, we cannot get Charms, which is Tootsie Roll. That's the same company now. They just will not entertain being a pop. And so there are people that think we're sponsored by blow pop, and we're not. Other tradition, which is the most recent, would be what we call evidence. And this is merely a bottle of glitter. And one day we were in Put-in-Bay, Ohio. The thing about Put-in-Bay is that all of the bars are in walking distance. There's a ton of bands every night. And when people bar hop, because there's no cover charge, so people just bar hop all over the island. Well, we wanted a way to designate our audience from every other audience on the island. So when people came to see us and then would go to another bar, we wanted them to walk into that bar and have everybody in that bar know where they had been. And so we thought, well, what could we do? We could do stickers, we could do, glow in the dark, little glow sticks or something like that. And that night, strangely enough, there was a woman in the crowd, and she had this lotion that had glitter in it. And so I said, oh my God, let me see that. So I got that glitter lotion, and we started putting that on people. We rub it on their face and stuff like that. So we decided that we were going to get a little bit more aggressive about that. And so then we went with full-on glitter. And now what we do is we cover the entire crowd with glitter. And it's a fun thing, and everybody gets excited about it. And we play a Def Leppard song, Pour Some Sugar on Me, while we're doing it. But it has a utility as well, because what does happen is then people, whenever they leave the club, go to the restaurant, even up until days later, that glitter will still be on them. And it's a reminder of, hopefully, the good time that they had when they came and saw us. So what started out as something that was just a way to designate our fans from all the other fans in a place that had a lot of competition has now turned into one of the most popular traditions of all. We get asked a lot about the American flags, and it's a pretty cool story. We were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, And there were two guys there at the show. They'd never seen us before, and they had both been wounded in Afghanistan. And they just happened to be at the show. And whenever they left, whenever they were sent home, all of the guys and the girls that they served with presented them both with American flags. And I don't know if it's a tradition or what, because nobody in the band was ever in the military, so I'm not sure how this works. But they actually signed the flag, and they put, this one here is, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Fallujah, and the places that they had been. They had written on that. There's also on the other flag, there's some other things, but it contains a bunch of names. And they gave us these flags, and they asked us, they said, look, these flags hang in our basement, and nobody ever sees them. And you guys are all over the country, and this would be an opportunity for these flags, for the sacrifice that some of the people on these flags made, to be displayed at every single show. And there's really nothing more representative of American freedom than rock and roll. So we agreed to that. And so for 17 years, these flags have been on our stage. We have one on either side of the stage. And they had one other request. They requested that at every show that we make it an overture to anyone in the audience that had served, was serving, or had a family member that was currently serving but was not at the show, to come and place their name on the flag. And literally thousands and thousands of names have been collected on both of these flags. This one here, we actually had one of the last remaining World War II veterans come to Houston, Texas, because he had heard of our tradition. He had his son bring him there just so that he could sign the flag. There's a lot of people on these flags that signed them and then left and will never be back. There's a lot of people whose family members have signed these flags in their memory. So they have a lot of significance. The big flag in the back of the stage, we had that custom made in Louisville, Kentucky. And there's a big flag manufacturer there called Oates Flag. And we needed one that was going to be really big. And so we had that custom made, and you can see the holes in it. And those are, many of them, wear and tear from so many rock and roll battles. And people ask, why don't you get a new flag? Well, one of the reasons is, I think back to the early days of America's birth, and you think about the Star-Spangled Banner, and you think about the words about the flag, still being there, tattered and torn and that kind of stuff. And so I feel like that this is kind of representative of our rock and roll journey, because every single tear and cut is represents a battle somewhere that we played. We had it hung up one night in Louisville, Kentucky, and it had turned into a sail, and it was literally about to pull the entire stage over. And so we had to get up, and we had to put 2 spots in there so that some air could come through. So when I look at this flag, and I see cuts, and I see dirty, and I see places like this, every one of those has a story. Every one of those is a representation of us exercising our freedom by getting on stage and playing rock and roll music. So that's why we haven't replaced the flag. And I don't know if we ever will, because like I said, every single one of those represents something that is important and significant. It represents a moment in time in the Velcro Pygmies rock and roll battle. And so when you come see the flag and you see all of those, understand that that's what that is, what those represent, and that you are witnessing history. It's a time capsule of our career, and we've had that flag for almost 20 years now. And she's been through a lot of rock and roll battles, I can tell you that.
All over you. Cause I'm rich, bitch.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys for watching. As you can see, I am halfway back into normal person mode. We really appreciate it. Tell all your friends. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you like. Make sure that you share. And we will see you again on the next episode of Pyg-Tales.